You think networking is safe because it happens in public, even if it's at night, even if it's on a rooftop that no one else can see. That's what I thought the first time the executive's invitation landed in my inbox. No agenda, no promise, only his name in the subject line and a date. I watched everyone say yes, like it was normal. Maybe they knew more than me. Or maybe they wanted what I wanted: access, advancement, security. The first time I said yes, I did it out of fear. The second time, out of hope. By the third, no one even asked who was paying for drinks or why the door locked as the sun went down. Pressure is hard to see in real time. You want to believe you're strong, immune, that no is always a word you own. But here's the truth. Power shifts quietly. It's not in what gets said. It's what nobody asks. Who gets to leave? Who feels like leaving isn't an option? By the end, I could chart every moment where I should have walked out. Instead, each step closer felt like an invitation I couldn't turn down. I told myself I was in control. So when people talk about networking events, you think you know what it means. You believe you'd spot the trap. You think you'd never fall for it. So if you think you've heard it all, you haven't. Hit follow on your favorite platform and leave a comment. The next story might change your mind. Don't miss a single turn. Chapter 1. Invitation only. You learn the lesson later, that your first test is never marked as a test. It comes as something mundane. An email, a meeting request, a casual nod in the hallway. That's how it began for me. I woke up to the executive's name blinking in my inbox at 5:37 a.m., sent from his phone. No subject line except Thursday, 7:30. No explanation, no agenda. Only a time and the rooftop address at the city's edge. The building's name wasn't even listed. Only street numbers, which felt like a code you were supposed to recognize. I reread the message a dozen times, searching for a clue hidden between the words. There wasn't one. The executive's emails weren't friendly, but they were never careless. They arrived at odd hours. They used statements instead of questions. This one was even sharper in its emptiness. No context, no "hope you're well." Not even a sign-off. I froze. Was this a group event? Or did he only invite me? Was I singled out for a reason? I'd only been at the company 6 months. I hadn't missed a deadline, but no one congratulated you for doing the expected. The top stories in the office always centered on who got invited and who didn't. There was a kind of reverence for being chosen, but nobody said what you were being chosen for. I wanted to decline. As I sat there, coffee going cold in my hand, I typed out a refusal 3 separate times. No pulse on the keyboard. I deleted each one. The more I thought about it, the more absurd it sounded to say no to a senior executive. I worried he'd interpret it as a sign of weakness or a lack of ambition. The next notification came at 9:04 a.m. A text from Anjali, a junior manager who started just before me. 3 words. You in too? I hadn't replied to the exec yet, but she already knew. Had she seen my name on a list? I wanted to ask how many people would be there, but I held back. Nobody wants to look uncertain this early in your career. Sure, I texted back. At lunch, 2 other co-workers, Mark and Tori, sat at the edge of my table. They whispered over their salads, their voices low. I caught bits of the conversation. Nervous laughter, Tori joking about getting upgraded from stash to shortlist. Mark tried to sound casual. Last time someone bailed, he called them out at the next team meeting. Uncomfortable but effective. I was still new enough to think he exaggerated. The rest of that Thursday was a grind. I checked my phone every half hour, rehearsing possible questions, answers, and fallback plans. My manager didn't say anything, but when I asked if I could leave early, she nodded fast. So fast it felt rehearsed. I went to the restroom twice after 5. The fluorescent lights made my skin look pale. I switched shirts. I almost didn't go, but at 7:15 I was already halfway there. It was dusk, the city humming below, the traffic thinning just enough to remind you of all the people heading home somewhere safe. At the building entrance, I hesitated. It wasn't the office tower where I worked every day. It was across the street, taller and more glass, the kind where you need a special badge for the elevator. Security waited inside, serious, silent. Before I could say my name, he checked a clipboard and waved me through with a nod. My heart banged in my chest as I stepped onto the elevator. The ride to the rooftop was silent except for the hum of cables and a faint, looping hotel soundtrack. The doors slid open to a narrow hallway. You know you're early but you see a few people milling around, not quite a group, more like scattered pieces of a puzzle. Some you recognize from the office. A programmer from IT with nervous hands. A finance director who never speaks in meetings. A handful of younger managers clutching their phones. Nobody makes eye contact. If anyone talks, it's in hushed fragments. Nothing about the exec, nothing about why the invite came. I take a seat by the window, keeping my coat on. The view is stunning. City lights stretching for miles, sharp against the darkening sky, but the glass makes you feel on display, not protected. I count 9 people in the room. The table is long and oval. No name cards. At one end, a row of highball glasses untouched. The executive enters at 7:28, tall and motionless in the doorway. His jacket hangs off his frame like an afterthought. Nobody stands, but every conversation stops. He walks around the table, greeting a few by name. He never makes eye contact for long. He smiles the kind of smile made for photographs, brief, almost reluctant. He starts with a joke about late-night productivity. Nobody laughs, so he repeats it. Then he thanks us for coming, pauses, and says, "No agenda tonight. We're getting to know each other. Let's see who steps up." That phrase hangs in the air, deliberate, heavy. He points to the first person on his left and says, "Tell us one thing nobody knows about you." I haven't even taken off my coat. The first woman, Corey, blinks and stammers. She mutters something about playing violin. Everyone nods as if that's meaningful. The next person says he ran a marathon. The next, she has twin siblings. The round robin goes faster than a meeting. No one elaborates beyond the bare minimum. My turn comes before I'm ready. I try to think of something safe, but everything feels sudden and staged. I say, "The first job I ever had was dishwashing at my cousin's restaurant." There's a beat of silence. He tilts his head. "Hospitality experience," he says, eyes unreadable. "I don't know if it's good or bad." Another round. "Say something that scares you." You begin to feel the pattern. No introductions, no context, just commands pass like test questions. Each answer is shorter, blunter. By the time it gets to me, I say, "Missing out." He nods but doesn't smile. Drinks appear. 2 young women serve wine and sparkling water, no option to refuse. The executive holds up his glass. "To new talent. You drink, even if you only sip. The taste is sharp and expensive. Nothing you'd order yourself." He leans back, watches the table. "Why did each of you accept this invitation?" The question is direct, but nobody answers first. Finally, Mark tries. "To support the team." The executive smiles. "Teamwork. Is that what this is?" He drags the pause. Nobody else volunteers. He asks, "Anyone here look this up on LinkedIn tonight, or did you all come blind?" A few nervous laughs, but it feels like a setup. Nobody wants to win or lose. I clear my throat, say, "I thought it was important." He narrows his eyes, like he's searching for the weak spot. What's important? The meeting or being seen at the meeting? He's not unkind, but every word lands with a thud. The question isn't meant to be answered. Conversation fragments, then fades. Nobody knows where to look. The city glows behind the glass, but the air feels thick. The executive stands, walks the table, then stops behind Anjali. "Did you tell anyone you were coming?" She shakes her head. I feel my stomach flip. "Did I?" He motions at the door. "Phone's in the bowl, please." The group hesitates. He holds up his own phone as if it's theater, then sets it in a ceramic dish. One by one, everyone follows, no protest, no fuss. The executive signals for more drinks, then lets the silence linger. He asks someone to describe one time you failed and what you did next. The room feels smaller. Each answer is shorter, less revealing. When he gets to me, I say, "I overpromised on a deadline and made the team stay late. I owned up, but I still regret it." He nods. Accountability. More rare than you'd think. A server refills glasses. Time passes oddly. It's both slow and hurried. A sharp wind rattles the glass doors. I notice Tori's legs shaking under the table, tapping out a silent code. It is nearly 9 when the conversation finally shifts. The executive stands again. He thanks everyone for their candor, asks us to leave our coats and come to the rooftop balcony. The group moves as a herd. I follow, feeling exposed. Outside, the air bites at your face. The view is breathtaking. The executive points to different neighborhoods, tells a half-remembered story about growing up poor nearby. He asks us, who here was the first in their family to go to college? Several hands go up. Mine too. But when he asks for specifics, most people lower their hands. He focuses on us, the ones who keep our hands up. See, people like you have everything to prove. People like me remember what it's like. You start to see the reason for the whole event. He's hunting for loyalty and for secrets. He's gathering information, the kind that's never written down, only observed and remembered. We go back inside. The table has shrunk. Someone left early and nobody noticed. Or maybe nobody wanted to notice. The executive acts as if nothing happened. He asks who's driving home, then offers a car service to the most dedicated. I see two people glance away. He finally wraps it up, thanks us again, and promises, "We'll be in touch." The words are empty and thick. The meeting ends with a long, loaded silence. You leave with your coat half on, your phone buzzing in your hand the moment you get it back. The elevator ride down is slower than it was coming up. Outside, the city air feels thin. You check your phone. One missed call from your mother, two new group chats already crackling with nervous energy. You keep replaying the night, each question, each unspoken rule, every moment where a no would have cost you something invisible. You don't want to admit that you still crave a follow-up invitation, even as you walk home with too many questions and a chill that has nothing to do with the weather. Tomorrow you'll check your inbox again, searching for another message, just a name, a time, a place. You'll wonder who will make the list, who will be left out, and if being included feels more like a prize or a warning. Let me know if you need adjustments, if you'd like this split for audio formatting, or if you want Chapter 2 next in the same style and structure. Chapter 2, The Rooftop Welcome. The elevator doors open to silence. Every step onto the rooftop feels exposed, like you've stumbled onto a scene that's already in progress and you're late, even though the clock says you're early. The city hum falls away behind glass walls. Every sound, heels on tile, glasses clinking, a nervous cough, lands harder here, magnified by the emptiness. The air is cooled, but the scent of something sharp, an expensive cologne with metallic edges, maybe, cuts through. The space itself feels calculated. All glass, steel, soft lights. No clutter, no color, nothing to trip over or hide behind. You register that even the view, which should be comforting with its city lights, feels sterile. This isn't your world, and you're not supposed to relax. People gather in pockets. Some lean on the rail, pretending to take in the skyline. Others inspect their drinks instead of each other. No one calls out names. If there are cliques, they're subtle, shoulder-to-shoulder glances, brief whispers, awkward laughter. You search for someone you know, for a sign you fit, but everyone's faces are set. You hover near a tall table. Someone you half recognize from accounting nods, but doesn't invite you over. The executive isn't here yet. You feel everyone's posture change when a small group near the sliding door straightens. Someone tugs their shirt. Another smooths down their skirt with nervous hands. A server appears, balancing a tray of drinks. He doesn't ask, he simply hands you a faceted glass, cold and too heavy. You don't drink, not yet, but watch how the others receive theirs like they've rehearsed. A man in a blue suit laughs softly as he sips his whiskey. His eyes bounce from person to person, always calculating. You sense he's been here before. Minutes pass, slow at first, then in rushes. More people trickle in. Someone you saw in the elevator, a woman you passed in the lobby but never spoke to. They take their places, each collecting a drink, their smiles stretched thin. Nobody mentions work. The conversations are about last night's sports game, new restaurants, plans for vacation. None of it feels real. Every sentence hangs in the air, waiting for something to puncture the calm. You realize you're not the only one watching the clock. Several heads turn to the glass doors each time footsteps echo from the hall. People mutter guesses about the executive's entrance. Nobody checks their phones. Some are gone, no doubt handed over at the door as a matter of policy or protocol. You clutch yours tighter as if doing so will keep you anchored to the outside world. When the executive finally arrives, the room seems to shrink. He enters without hesitation, no fanfare, but the effect is unmistakable. Every conversation fades. He scans the room, eyes sharp, taking roll without notes. He greets a few by name, Mark Torrey, the man in the blue suit, but gives no one more than a second's acknowledgement. He says, "Thank you for showing up." Not everyone does. It's supposed to sound welcoming, but it lands like a test. He lets the silence hang until someone laughs nervously. He smiles, but not at anyone directly. Instead, he announces, "Let's sit." There are always fewer seats than people. This time, you notice right away, one long table inside, only 8 chairs. More than a dozen people stand awkwardly until he waves dismissively. Those who move quickest get the best spot. Same in business. It's framed like a joke, but you see several rush for chairs, some left stranded against the wall. You grab a seat by the window, heart thumping. The glass is cold against your arm. The lights dim, soft yellow halos circling the table. The city behind you, the executive in front. He sits at the head, arms resting on the tabletop, hands folded loosely. He says, "Let's get to know the real team." He turns to Tori. "You first. Who are you, not your resume?" Tori stammers, offers a half-story about loving travel, her father's bakery, but trails off when the executive cuts her off with a smile. He points to the next person, each forced to answer in turn. When it comes to you, you remember what happened at the last meeting. How every answer felt like a risk, how too much honesty could make you the target, or worse, the outcast. You clear your throat. "I like solving puzzles. I joined for the challenge." The executive nods, eyes narrowing, filing the answer somewhere you can't follow. As the introductions circle the table, you notice how certain people are rewarded. A nod, a follow-up question, a refill of their glass. Others are left to drift, their answers dying in midair. The executive steers every exchange. After each person speaks, he offers a comment or a light correction. Sometimes he challenges the facts. "Really? That's what you want us to know about you." Other times, he only watches, letting the silence drag until someone fills it with more than they meant to share. The standing group is uneasy, shifting from foot to foot, whispering among themselves. The executive doesn't look their way, though you feel his awareness is total. He controls everything, the flow, the tone, who feels included, who's left out. When drinks run low, another round appears. No one requests anything. The server already knows, standing behind the executive, ready with whatever drink suits the moment. One person, Maya from IT, hesitates, pushes her glass away, but the server sets it down anyway, close enough that she can't ignore it. The executive raises his glass. Success rewards those who stay uncomfortable. The toast is met with scattered agreement, some forced, some hollow. You sip, not sure whether you're celebrating or surrendering. He keeps the questions going, switching from small talk to sharp probes. "Who controls the group tonight?" he asks, eyes scanning the faces. Nobody offers an answer. Mark says, "You do." The executive laughs, loud enough to drown out any doubt. "That's what you think." He moves on, presenting a scenario. A client misses a deadline. What do you do? One by one, people answer. Some short, some defensive, some rambling. He presses, poking holes in answers, asking for details nobody expected to reveal. Tori volunteers that she threatened to pull a contract once. The executive grins. Assertive. Useful trait, if you know when to use it. The evening crawls. You glance outside. The city lights blur through the glass. The executive takes a call, standing away from the group, back half-turned. Even in absence, his authority lingers. Without the leader's presence, chatter picks up, false and quick. Someone whispers about last month's meeting. How the real reward wasn't the praise, but getting called out in front of the wider team, your performance dissected as entertainment. You realize everyone at the table is scanning their own answers, trying to remember if they said anything that might be used against them later. It's not paranoia if you've seen it happen. The executive returns, all business. He calls for a group photo. A server lines everyone up, snapping a picture with the executive at the center, others angled around him. You wonder where the photos go, or who decides how they're used. Cigarettes and phones reappear for a few, but the executive requests, "Let's keep it private tonight." Nobody argues. You tuck your phone into your bag, suddenly aware how vulnerable you feel. Here you are, alone with a group of almost strangers, weighed down by invisible rules. The party migrates to the outdoor deck. The temperature drops, but people follow, too programmed to suggest leaving. The executive stands at the railing, looking out over the city, backlit by the faint glow of neon. He tells a story about his own mentor, how nothing was ever handed to him, how late nights reveal the real priorities. He doesn't invite responses. The message is clear. Some begin to shiver. You rub your arms, trying to preserve warmth. A few people slip inside early, citing phone calls or another engagement. The executive never calls them back, nor does he acknowledge their absence. Those who linger are rewarded with his attention, a soft word, an inside joke, a reference to an opportunity. You see the calculation. Presence equals future access. Leaving, even for a moment, costs you standing. You retreat inside for a glass of water. Near the bar, Maya is whispering to another woman from finance. You overhear fragments. Didn't think it was like this. Can't say no. What if I make a mistake? The other woman shrugs, resigned. You play or you don't. Nobody remembers the ones who quit. The lights are dimmer. Some music swells from ceiling speakers. Something expensive and blank, designed to fill space without memory. You wish for the distraction of your phone, but without it, you're forced into the present. Each detail, each comment, each look cataloged in your mind for review later, trying to decipher the hidden meanings. The executive calls everyone back to the table. He declares, "One last question for all. What do you want from this group?" People hesitate, hedging. Growth, opportunity, to learn. The answers feel rehearsed, stripped of hope or risk. You take your turn. A place where I don't have to guess what matters. He smiles, small and sharp. That's rare. Most people never ask what matters. They settle for being included. He stands. Some of you made the right impression tonight. Some of you won't be back. Consider this your first feedback. The room tightens. You feel the sting of competition, but also relief as the evening ends. People gather their coats, murmurs rising. The executive thanks you all, never raising his voice but making sure everyone hears. You're either in the room or you're not. You step out into the hall, body tense. No one offers hugs, high fives, or invitations to continue elsewhere. Some faces are pale, others a little too bright from drink or adrenaline. You check your phone, bracing for missed calls, but there is nothing. Silence. On the elevator down, you and Maya exchange a single look. Not quite a smile, not quite an apology. Downstairs, the streetlights buzz. You breathe in the night air, both chilled and grateful for the break from invisible observation. At home, alone, you replay everything. Each question, each quip, each forced confession. You wonder what the executive will remember, what you gave away, whom he'll praise or punish next. You realize you spent the night measuring your own reactions, searching others' faces for signs of safety or threat. You sit with the understanding that exclusivity breeds tension, and pressure is the hidden host at every seat. You know the event left its mark, subtle and deep, shaping how you'll respond. Yes or no, stay or leave, the next time the invitation lands. As you finally slip between your sheets, still dressed, you hear the city echo below and above, and you wonder, is this networking, or is this survival in slow motion? You wake the next morning to another blank subject line in your inbox, another date, another test. If you want edits, expansion, or specific detail focus, tell me. Ready for Chapter 3 in the same format whenever you are. Chapter 3. Icebreakers and Boundaries. The night thickens as the first round of introductions wrap. You sense an invisible tightening, the group drawn together by something more than curiosity. The executive, still as glass at the table's head, holds the room without raising his voice. His eyes flick from face to face, patience masking calculation. He speaks. Let's break the ice. Who'll share something unexpected? A talent, a passion, a secret. The game sounds casual, but you recognize the subtle test. Anjali jumps in, laughing a little too loudly. I'm a terrible cook, she admits, but I love baking bread on weekends. It relaxes me. She glances to the executive, searching for judgment. He gives a slight nod. Polite smiles answer her, the group's relief carefully measured. Mark leans forward, aiming casualness. Hiking, just the easy trails. It clears my head. Torai says she paints abstract art, her hands twisting the edge of her napkin. Every share feels rehearsed, like lines practiced for a forgiving crowd. You sit quiet at first, watching how these early confessions set boundaries but don't cross them. You sense the group's rule. Be open, not vulnerable. Connect, but don't relinquish control. The executive raises his glass. To honesty. The words are simple, the tone anything but warm. You notice how people echo each other's answers and mirror body language. Smiles, nods, the nervous glance at a phone. It's as if disguised scripts were handed out at the door. Present yourself, but shield what matters. The questions shift. If you choose to pass, own it. Think about why you're hesitant. Maya drums her fingers on the table, eyes tracing a path to the exit. I pass, she whispers, voice taut. The executive doesn't press, but his smile flickers, a hint of disappointment. Self-awareness is key. But why? Maya shrugs. Some things are better private. He lets the silence stretch. Remember, trust builds walls or breaks them. The line lands with a chill. The boundary between choice and coercion starts to fade. He leans in. Boundaries protect us, but sometimes they keep us from opportunity. What will you bend to advance? The table tenses. Mark answers. Some boundaries are flexible. It depends on the situation. The executive nods. But how do you know where to draw the line? Torai swallows. Hard to tell. You don't want regret, but you don't want to miss chances. Everyone sits with the question. You think of every unspoken no. How price and risk hang in the air when no one dares say them aloud. With each round, the group changes shape. A cluster pulled close by the fear of standing out. The boundaries between humor and pain, honesty and safety, blur until there's no clear line. The executive's questions become more pointed. Who's compromised values for a promotion? Some hands lift, slow and heavy, the air thick with admission. He asks, what did that feel like? After a silence, Maya's voice breaks it. Like losing a piece of myself. I told myself it was temporary. Temporary loss, the executive says, is sometimes the price of growth. You remember all the small trades. Another drink, a late reply, letting someone push too far. The verdict is clear. Every boundary has a cost. You replay the night's conversation, tracing how the executive set each step. He used intent pauses, small nods, and casual comments, control wrapped in kindness. You see now how laughter becomes currency, approval the glue, and every silence a crack to be pried open. You understand that this isn't friendship. This is a game of power, of small concessions masking larger trades. The executive stands. Boundaries are tools, not walls. What are you willing to trade? It's both advice and warning. Coats are gathered. Conversations flicker, few daring to linger. You leave with more questions than answers, replaying each smile, each joke, each line you step closer to, and which ones now feel erased. This was not just networking. This was survival, written in the language of compliance. And you know the real test has only begun. Chapter 4. Drinks on the house. The room shifts again as the night deepens. The clink of glasses punctuates pauses, filling empty spaces no one dares to acknowledge. The executive leans back, watching faces, savoring the effect of a ritual he's mastered. The trays arrive. Not with a clatter, but a quiet dance, servers moving smoothly through the tight space, offering choice after choice. Wine, whiskey, cocktails, drinks you want to refuse, but find yourself reaching for anyway. I watch. People who say no draw a glance. The executive notices. Late arrivals sip quickly, eager to catch up. They laugh too loud or slip into conversations with an edge of desperation. Everyone wants to belong, and the drinks lubricate that desperate dance. I take mine hesitantly. The scent of aged oak and citrus is sharp, bitter, a contrast to the sweetness of the night's promise. It's a contradiction that mirrors the whole event. The executive taps his glass, calls for attention. To the ones who stay, he says. The ones who keep moving forward when the night gets long. I feel the weight in those words. An unspoken challenge. More than a toast, it's a test. The drinks transform the room. The way a few drops of alcohol can change a conversation, a glance, a gesture. The lines between consent and compliance blur gradually, unnoticed at first. I see Maya refuse her second drink. She holds her glass close, lowers it. You can sense the subtle shift. The executive's smile tightens. He moves closer, leans in, a presence felt even in silence. You sure? He asks softly. Everyone hears it, even if no one says it aloud. She nods, voice barely a whisper. I'm good. The executive shrugs and waves a server over. Another for Maya, he says, voice casual but firm. Maya's eyes flick to me. There's a question there. Maybe a plea. The pressure to conform is a quiet force. You want to belong, to prove you're part of the group. Every refusal marks you subtly, a crack in the mask. Later, the executive pointedly asks, who here thinks they can handle their drink? A few people laugh nervously, trying to appear confident. I watch as the bravado cracks, as stories of late nights and morning regrets surface. Drinking is a skill, the executive says. Knowing when to stop isn't weakness. It's control. The truth is more complicated. Control here is slippery. You can gain it by giving in, or lose it by standing firm. Across the room, the clink of a glass falls silent. A conversation dies. You notice who's looking, who isn't. The next round arrives, faster this time. More laughter, more slurred words, and fewer clear thoughts. I think about the first time I drank at one of these events. How the warmth spread, how the night's questions softened. I remember the weight lifted, but also the edge lost, the price paid in small steps. The drinks are more than just liquid. They carry promise, risk, and unspoken rules. I keep my glass half full, sipping slowly, counting moments between each swallow. I watch the room change, people shift, the atmosphere thicken. The executive claps his hands softly, breaking the lull. "Let's share a story," he says. "A time you faced pressure and what you did." Voices are quieter now. Stories come out less polished, more raw. Some stories are small victories. Others confessions. When it's my turn, I tell a story of standing up for a colleague unfairly criticized. The room listens. Some nod. Some shift. The executive's eyes linger a moment longer, as if weighing my words. We're all playing a game with rules that never get fully explained. The stakes keep rising. The hour grows late. The executive's gaze scans the room again. He notices who's fading, who's holding fast. He shifts gear, moving conversations toward loyalty and sacrifice. Who's made a choice for someone else's benefit, even at a cost to themselves, he asks. Hands rise slowly. Confessions come softly. You hear the tension in the voices, the mixture of pride and regret. The night stretches on, wrapping everyone in the same tight web of expectation. The drinks keep flowing, as does the unspoken pressure to stay. You realize this is power played out in the smallest details. Every sip, every glance, every pause a move in the game. The servers move like shadows, seamlessly replenishing glasses before they're empty. No one asks for more. It's expected. You notice subtle cues. A nod from the executive, a quiet order to the staff. It's choreographed. You watch faces shift as the alcohol softens tongues and loosens judgment. Some people lean into the warmth, laughing louder, letting their shoulders drop. Others stiffen, eyes tracking the room, calculating each interaction. Maya slips a hand to her throat, swallowing hard. Her drink remains untouched now, but the tray keeps coming. Drinks served but not consumed become part of the ritual. Signs of defiance or discomfort quietly ignored. The executive's presence is a magnet, pulling attention. When he speaks, voices drop. When he smiles, people try to catch that approval, tilt their bodies toward him. At one point, he draws the group close with a story of his own early career. A tale not about success but about sacrifice. I learned fast that what you say yes to shapes your path. His words hang in the air, both lesson and warning. You think about the way the drinks dull your resistance, how the room's atmosphere thickens with each refill. Conversations blur boundaries. What was once a firm line between work and personal, between comfort and exposure, now feels dangerously flexible. At the table, someone leans in to share a whispered joke. Laughter bubbles up, a brief relief. But the smiles seem fragile, held in place by the unseen weight of observation. You scan the room, noting who's still sharp and who's retreating into themselves. The pressures mount silently, the fear of standing out balanced against the fear of fading into the background. The executive circles back to the question of loyalty. Who here has gone the extra mile for the team? For the company? For me? His gaze lingers on each face, searching for answers. A few hands cautiously rise. Stories follow. Nights spent working late, sacrifices made, personal costs endured. You sense a complex mix of pride and unease in these admissions. He nods at each confession, quick to praise but never fully satisfied. Sacrifice is the currency of success, he says. But know this, the debt is always owed, and the collector never sleeps. The weight of his words sinks in. You realize this event is less about celebration and more about control, an exercise in shaping who belongs and who is left behind. Later, the executive calls for one last toast. To those who prove loyalty. Glasses raise again, hands trembling slightly, smiles thin. You take a slow sip, knowing this night has shifted something inside everyone present. The taste is bitterly sweet, a reminder that belonging sometimes comes at a price. As the trays empty for the final time, the night winds down. But the echo of the drinks lingers, a reminder that power often moves through the smallest, quietest moments, and that the place where you say yes to a drink might be the place where you quietly say no to yourself. The shift in atmosphere isn't sudden. It creeps up between words, drifts on the edges of laughter, settles in the small pauses. You notice how the executive's gaze lingers longer on those who drink steadily, not wildly. It's not the party, it's the performance. You watch Anjali take a careful sip, her fingers trembling just slightly as she brings the glass to her lips. She holds it for a moment, eyes searching the executive's face for an unspoken signal. The room feels charged, not with excitement, but with anticipation for what's next, like waiting for a storm. You think back to times in your life when alcohol was freedom, escape, relief. But here it feels different. It's the tool of control, the lubricant of pressure. The conversations soften, edges blur. Jokes start, but they're more brittle than funny. Compliments are weighed, measured. You catch a glance between two men, a flash of knowing, an unspoken pact. The executive's attention hops quickly, never resting long on anyone. It's like he's grazing, tasting the narratives, memorizing what's said and what's held back. At one point, a woman near the window laughs too loudly and immediately quiets. The executive's smile doesn't reach his eyes. The joy is fragile here. You realize no one here is quite themselves. The masks are transparent but thick. You sip again, feeling the bitter warmth spread in your chest. You remind yourself, this is a game, and the stakes are subtle but real. Later, the executive casually discusses loyalty, layering his words with insinuations. Loyalty isn't given, he says, voice low and steady. It's earned, and earned things can be taken away. The meaning isn't lost. The room leans in, collectively holding breath. You think about your own boundaries, how they've bent already, how some slipped unnoticed. The clock ticks toward midnight, and you're acutely aware that tomorrow might mark the beginning of something you can't yet name. The executive raises his glass one final time. To those who know what they're giving and what they're getting in return. The clink reverberates, a sound heavier than the glass. You let the liquid linger in your mouth, tasting more than just alcohol, tasting the cost of power. As the night winds down and people begin to drift toward the exit, the silence speaks louder than any words. You watch the executive collect empty glasses with a small, satisfied smile. His control is total. Every moment, every choice, every breath measured and accounted for. You slip on your coat in slow motion, your mind replaying the night's subtle manipulations, the pressure layered beneath the surface. You know this isn't just about drinks or small talk. It's about influence, power, and how easily consent can bend when wrapped in a toast, a smile, a shared moment. The next invitation is already forming in your inbox, and you're already wondering which version of yourself you'll bring next time. Chapter 5. The circle tightens. The elevator doors close behind you. The city is a blur of lights below, but in here, focus narrows. Just you and the handful who stayed late. Every return to the rooftop feels more familiar, less like possibility, more like obligation. The event no longer hides behind novelty or surprise. Now each step up is a choice marked by what you stand to gain or lose. Tonight, the guest list shrinks. Only the right people make it onto the email. There are no rumors circulating downstairs, no nervous laughter from first-timers in the lobby. Instead, there's a steady resolve among those who arrive, a silent pact. You enter with the same half-smile as everyone else, jacket over your arm, a practiced ease to your hey. But you all know the stakes. These nights are no longer additions. They're retention. Inside, the room is tighter, physically and psychologically. No servers wait at the entrance. A single bar is set up, self-service, bottles arranged in a purposeful line. Only the good glasses remain tonight, heavy-bottomed, crystal clear. The city lights press in on the glass as if observing the ritual. Mark is already there, perched at the edge of a couch. He nods, eyes tired but alert. Torai busies herself arranging the glasses, making small talk with Maya, who laughs, but with eyes that do not smile. As people fill in, you notice. There are fewer each time. No one mentions it, but you all track absences. Who isn't here, who stopped replying, who might have said the wrong thing or failed the last invisible test. The executive enters. He doesn't greet you by name, but pauses to let the quiet wrap around the room. His presence is denser tonight. He circles slowly, like a teacher in a classroom, surveying the faces and mood. He sits, gestures for everyone to join him at the low table. Legs fold in awkward directions. Silence swells, only broken by Mark clearing his throat. Long week, he offers. A few nods. No one dares elaborate. The executive starts. Let's clear the air. These nights are about more than career. We're shaping trust, vulnerability, the things that matter off the record. He lets the words hang. He leads with a question. Who here has been tempted to say something they shouldn't? His eyes rest on you, the pressure unspoken but direct. You answer honestly, a small thing, about sharing company gossip with a friend. The group relaxes minutely, and the dam breaks. Stories surface. Stealing credit, hiding failures, saying yes when you meant no. The confessions are not grand. They're incremental, but have weight. Torai talks about padding a report to avoid blame. Mark shares how he deferred loyalty when a better offer came. Maya admits she avoided conflict instead of calling out bullying. Each story slices off a piece of comfort, making the air heavier. The executive's questions sharpen. Why confess now? What do you hope to gain? Maya winces. To be understood. Mark mutters. To belong. He nods. Belonging is currency. Spend it wisely. He lets the group unravel, then gathers the threads. Trust only grows when risk meets disclosure. Who's willing to risk more tonight? His gaze locks onto Anjali, silent so far. She hesitates, then relents. Last year, I left someone out of a project so I could look better. I still think about it. The executive doesn't judge. He nods, validating the trade-off. Success versus integrity. You register the lesson. Here, confession is not just catharsis, it's currency. He ups the ante. Who in this room do you trust? Who don't you trust? The room tightens. The question is a wedge. Divide and observe. People skirt direct answers. Torai says she trusts the process. Mark claims he trusts anyone who's stayed for more than 3 events. The executive smiles. Pattern matters. History matters. Actions, not promises. You find yourself drifting, scanning those present. Body language does not lie. Shoulders turn inward from some, glances linger on others. The group is fracturing, even as it huddles closer. The executive steers the conversation to personal secrets, ambitions, failures. With every prompt, private details leak. Someone talks about a failed relationship, another about a parent's illness, another confides about being passed over for promotion. With each revelation, the group dynamic shifts. The executive tracks them all, catalogs them. Instinctively, that everything shared tonight becomes part of the architecture. A future lever, a potential tool. He says, every network lives and dies on information. Power flows where stories are shared. Who's holding back? All eyes dart around. No one owns up. He smiles. This isn't about forced honesty. It's about knowing the difference between showing up and truly participating. He signals for drinks. You pour your own, gripping the glass a little too hard. You think of times you shared more than you wanted, and times you wished you'd said nothing. The night slides along, less about networking and more about exposure. The conversations deepen. Questions grow sharper. The boundaries between professional and personal blur. You notice fractures. Paired off side conversations, whispers, glances exchanged with layers of meaning. Small alliances form. Old resentments sharpen. Trust is temporary, built and tested in fast cycles. At one point, the executive asks for the group's biggest fear. Not the polite version, but the thing that keeps each person up at night. Answers come haltingly. Irrelevance, betrayal, being the odd one out, letting down the team. You hold yours close, then let it out. Losing myself trying to meet someone else's expectations. No one mocks. A few nod, faces draining of tension. The evening closes not with a toast, but with a final challenge. Think about what you shared tonight. Think about what you didn't share. Next time, decide what matters more. You rise slowly, gathering your things. The group lingers. Everyone measures each other, calculating alliances, debts, vulnerabilities. On the way down, conversation idles. Mark mutters about work. Torai checks her phone, frowning at a text. Maya glances your way, eyes heavy with something like relief and regret. Outside, you breathe in humid air. A voice behind you, Anjali quiet. Does it get easier? You answer. No. You only get better at hiding what hurts. The walk to your car is quiet. You replay every detail. Stories told, secrets kept, lines crossed under low light and watchful eyes. Every revelation is a risk, every silence a statement. You realize the group is shrinking and changing. Those who remain are not the same as when these nights began. The circle tightens with every test, and you never know when your own moment will come, when a question or an answer might finally push you out. At home, you stare at the blank inbox, half wanting the next invitation, half dreading it. You understand. You're already inside. You're already changed. Tomorrow, you'll weigh again what to share and what to keep as the circle draws tighter and the price of trust rises. Chapter 6. Unspoken Agreements. The elevator doors part with a familiar sigh, but tonight you step onto the rooftop with no pretense of ease. The air feels heavier, thick with repetition and something more, expectation. You know now that no invitation is casual. Each one is an advance payment on future loyalty or compliance. So you come. You're expected. The room is smaller this time, both in number and arrangement. Fewer chairs. The sunlight, barely clinging to the horizon, slides across polished stone floors. The executive is already here, not at the entrance but deep within the circle. He's waiting, face bathed in the glow from his phone, coat off, tie loosened, casual but controlled. No one says hello aloud. Instead, you stand near the drink counter, nodding to the others. Mark pours whiskey without asking if anyone else wants one. Maya hovers at the edge, watching. Torai puts her phone away fast, eyes darting to the executive, searching for approval or judgment. Anjali sits nearest to the head of the table this time, back straight, hands worrying the hem of her sleeve. Normal office rules don't apply here. Late arrivals are noticed. Early departures never forgiven. And though no one says it, everyone understands that tonight, staying is more important than speaking. The executive looks up, eyes passing over the group like a scan. Phones, he says, quiet tone but no room for argument. He gestures to a ceramic bowl. One by one, the group complies. Torai places hers in, as if it weighs 100 pounds. Mark, with a flourish. Maya hesitates, squeezing it tight before surrendering. It's the last anchor to an outside world now gone. The executive speaks softly. Let's close the door. The city falls silent the moment steel latches into place. The act is small but final. You feel the shift, a line drawn between what's allowed and what's not, between here and out there. He starts with a story from his own career. There are things that only get said in certain rooms. Once you leave, you forget them. That's the deal. He watches, waiting for affirmation. The group nods, unsure what they've just agreed to. You realize, halfway through his anecdote, that you never heard anyone say what happens at these meetings should remain private. But it's clear. Even without the words, you all follow. The executive turns to Maya. Do you trust this group? Maya glances around, afraid of being alone in her answer. She nods, quick but not confident. He smiles as if to reward compliance, or to record it for future use. The conversation breaks into smaller fragments. Quick sides, shared memories of past meetings, admissions of fatigue or pride. The mood is almost familial, but always tense. An ensemble reading from a half-finished script. A knock. Unexpected, sharp. Heads snap up, the group tenses. The executive remains unmoved. Not expecting anyone, he says. Mark volunteers to check. The executive says, no. We're fine. The tension lingers, a reminder of how easily the bubble might break. Someone jokes about the growing list of unspoken rules. Show up, stay late, say enough, but not too much. Don't leave early. Torai laughs, but quickly apologizes with her eyes. The executive nods. Boundaries matter. But so does knowing which ones to flex. He asks, at what point does your loyalty shift? When does duty become discomfort? The answers come slow. Anjali suggests, you just know, it's a feeling. Mark admits, you test but never push too far. Maya says nothing. Food arrives. No one claims hunger, but everyone eats, a silent break from the gravity of confession. The executive keeps the conversation moving from mundane questions. What's your biggest accomplishment this year? To unnerving ones. What wouldn't you tell your manager? Each answer is punctuated by silence or forced laughter. The mood darkens as the sky outside loses its final blue. Now the room is all yellow light, reflection, and closed doors. The talk grows more confessional. Someone, maybe you, mentions an error they covered up, the price they paid for someone else's mistake. The executive listens, eyes unblinking, cataloging every detail. You realize the group expects someone to break first. To stand, to leave, to say what none of you can voice. I don't want to play anymore. But no one does. Instead, you all settle deeper into the soft cushions, hiding fatigue behind false smiles, signaling allegiance by staying, by not questioning routines or rituals. Each member performs compliance, convinced it's the right move, the only move. Later, the executive says, "Sometimes true consent isn't about saying yes. It's about not saying no. Do you agree?" This time you hesitate. You want to push back, say that silence isn't always approval, that pressure doesn't erase agency but erodes it. But you only nod. The agreement becomes a thing you all share, but never discuss. It's in every gesture. A refill poured, a seat held, a joke half told and quickly killed. As midnight approaches, the executive stands, ending the evening without warning. He collects the bowl of phones, hands them back with a gracious, "Thank you for trusting." He smiles at each person, but his eyes hold a different message. The game is ongoing, and participation is the proof. You gather your things. The group disperses without a word. In the hallway, Anjali sighs. Why do we do this to ourselves? Mark shrugs. Because there's always something at stake. Maya lingers, eyes downcast. It's the price of being invited. You want to say more, but don't. Outside, the city's noise rushes back. You clutch your phone, your keys, your coat. You realize how much of yourself you've left behind in that closed, silent room. On the walk home, you run through every moment, every question unasked, every answer offered because it was expected. You wonder what would happen if you left early next time, or if there would be a next time at all. By the time you reach your door, you know that the strongest agreements are rarely spoken, never written, but they bind you all the same. And you see how quietly consent dissolves in the glow of loyalty, ritual, belonging, and fear. You check your phone, no new messages, no instructions, just your own face in dark glass, searching for a line you still haven't found. You sleep lightly. The memory of the room stays with you. Not oppressive but insistent, as if each agreement, each silence, each stayed departure is still being weighed, and the tally is not yet done. Chapter 7. Consent Revised. The ritual begins anew, but tonight, everything feels a bit off. Too calculated, too certain. You're aware of the sequence now. The elevator ascent, the waiting silence, the exchange of glances as people file into the room. There's an order to it all, a choreography so practiced you follow without thinking. Yet something unsettles you. The group has changed again, trimmed to those who never ask why. The new arrivals, if there are any, act like they've always belonged. No one comments on the missing. Attrition, Mark jokes, pouring himself a drink, but his laugh is short and flat. The executive is there before anyone else, pacing near the window, fuse silent and low. He meets your eyes once, then never again. As you greet him, you realize you're choosing your words. Every conversation is a negotiation, not about ambition but about safety. He starts the evening differently. No anecdotes, no warm-up. Instead, we'll go around. Share the last time you wanted to say no but didn't. The question lands with a weight that doesn't match his even tone. Torai volunteers first. My sister needed money. I loaned it to her, but it left me short for weeks. I should have said no. Maya follows, voice muted. Last quarter, my boss dumped a weekend project on me because I never refuse. I didn't, and I still regret it. It's your turn. You hesitate, thinking about what's safe to share versus what's real. Finally, you answer. Last Friday. Here. I wanted to skip, but didn't want to be left out. Didn't want to disappoint. The executive doesn't react, but you catch a flicker in his eyes. Maybe approval, maybe warning. The room seems to draw tighter with each admission. Rejecting something, even once, carries a punishment, disfavor, absence, being passed over. The group learns this lesson together, yet no one says it aloud. This time, drinks are served more insistently. The server pauses at every glass until you make a decision. If you say no, she sets it down anyway. If you touch it, she fills it further. The executive, perched at the head, raises his glass in silent command. Everyone follows. Conversations coil around the same themes. Pressure to stay, upsides of flexibility, fear of missing out. You realize that the hardest word to say in this room is no. The price of saying it is exile from the group, sometimes permanent. The executive turns the focus, asking, why is it easier to agree than to argue? Anjali sighs. Because it's exhausting to explain your boundaries every time. Mark shrugs. Saying no isn't worth the fallout. There's a numb honesty to their voices, a resignation that rings of long practice. You always have a choice, the executive says. His smile seems practiced, but the phrase feels empty. Everyone at the table knows that choice is only theoretical. Stories come out, halting and half-laughing. Skipped work boundaries, personal time cut for the good of the team. Meetings that run until midnight because no one dares be first to stand up. The group trades confessions about times they've agreed, relented, bent, let the current sweep them forward. You listen and know. These aren't failures of willpower or stamina. They're the consequence of an environment that rewards surrender and labels hesitance as disloyalty. Time lurches forward. The executive stages a contest now. First person to leave tonight buys breakfast for the rest. It's a joke, but no one moves. Everyone laughs, but nervously. Staying isn't about breakfast. It's about not giving him any reason to notice your absence. As the night deepens, physical boundaries erode alongside conversational ones. The group sits closer than comfort demands. Touches become markers. A hand on a back, a brush of a sleeve. It's subtle, but you clock every bit of it. How each movement serves as both invitation and test. At one point, Tori stands. I have an early call, she says, but the executive shakes his head, smile thin. A few more minutes. You'll want to hear what's next. She sits. Consent, you realize, has become a sliding scale, not a binary thing. You watch yourself and others agree. By silence, eye contact, a half smile. You realize that here, saying nothing is the same as saying yes. The stories and the drinking blur together. The executive redirects energy with prodding questions. What's the smallest thing you said yes to that led to something bigger? The group offers answers in fragments. Mark. Agreed to handle a minor task. 2 weeks later, I was in charge of the whole account. Maya. Covered for someone's mistake, ended up stuck with their job for months. You. Shared a ride home. Wound up helping move offices the next weekend. Each anecdote proves the point. Agreements, once granted, multiply. You begin to see how the smallest act of acquiescence links to larger surrender. The executive's tone grows lighter, but the room's tension only deepens. He proposes a game. I say a scenario, you say what you do. The examples escalate. Skip a friend's party for work. Take a late call even if you're exhausted. Let criticism pass because it's easier. Each time, you catch yourself defaulting to yes, even in this hypothetical. The executive laughs. See, you're all team players. The compliment is barbed. You hear the undertone. Team players are easy to bend. A new round of drinks lands. Maya finally refuses outright. The executive twists the bottle open himself, pours and says, Try. Just one sip for the group. She hesitates, eyes darting. Still, she relents. The pressure is openly visible now. Not just a suggestion, but an order backed by group silence. A hush follows. It's the first time you see someone's will falter so plainly, and the group does nothing. You realize that complicity is safety for most. Inaction shields you from the spotlight. The executive wraps the evening with another story. A half-true anecdote about a lost opportunity caused by refusing a favor. Most doors close because someone says no too soon, he claims, eyes locked on yours. Be careful which doors you close. He thanks you all for coming and, like always, ends with a loaded promise. Next time, the invite list will be smaller. The elevator ride down is more silent each week. Mark mutters. We should keep track of who lasts the longest. No one laughs. Out on the street, Maya draws you aside, hesitant. Why is it so hard to walk away? She asks. You don't have an answer. You both know that what holds you here is bigger than opportunity or ambition. It's belonging, validation, structure. The slow trickling need to stay inside the circle, even as it shrinks. At home, you stare at your face reflected in midnight glass. You replay the night's choices, the small, silent nods, the false smiles, the surrendered arguments, the words left unsaid because it was easier. You wonder, does it matter if a yes is forced, if everyone has learned to pretend it isn't? You realize you've stopped thinking about the next invitation as a chance. You see it now as a measure. One more evening where you'll lose a piece of yourself to the weight of someone else's expectation. Sleep comes late. The rituals and pressures echo in your head. The game, the circle, the question you still haven't asked. At what point does consent, revised and replayed each week, become nothing at all? And yet, despite it all, you wait. You wait for the next invitation, for reassurance that you are still wanted, that your presence, quiet, affirming, compliant, still matters to someone, even if the cost is impossible to name. Chapter 8. The Reward. There's never a formal record of the event, no meeting minutes, no sign-in sheet. Yet the memory imprints itself. Invitations arrive fewer and further between now. The group has whittled down to a manageable core. Those who have proven they can endure the rituals, those who ask nothing, who laugh at the right time, who stay. This week's message is plainer than before. Friday, 8 o'clock, rooftop. No other details. By now, you know the language. You recognize the fine print in its brevity. Sometimes the absence of information is its own reward. A sign you're trusted on the inside, where choice is both a privilege and a test. You prepare in silence. There's nothing to be said to friends or family anymore. You stop trying to explain these nights after realizing you never had the right words. The rituals at home. Choosing a shirt, packing breath mints, making sure your phone is charged, become a form of prayer. You leave your apartment while the city is still shaking off the day. A hush over the streets that reminds you of the quiet before a storm. At the entrance, the elevator is waiting, as if summoned by your approach. Inside, you let it lift you. The ascent is familiar, almost soothing. Each number glowing above the doors ticks off a history of decisions. Each floor a rung you climbed by yielding in small, forgettable ways. On the rooftop, the air is sharper than usual. The city glows differently, a deeper, older light in the distance, unbothered by tonight's tense circle. The group, only 6 this time, arranges itself around the outdoor fire bowl, encircled in half-light. Mark nods curtly. Maya barely hides her fatigue. Torai offers a wan smile, gesturing for you to sit beside her. It feels less like camaraderie, more like a truce. The executive stands at the edge of the circle, a silhouette against the city. For the first time, he doesn't begin with a story or a toast. He lets silence spin out, a lengthening thread. Then softly, he holds up a bottle, something dark and unlabeled. Special occasion, he says. We're celebrating commitment. No one asks the reason. You pour when prompted, clinking glasses in a muted, perfunctory ring. The taste is smoky, unfamiliar. You sip, watch, feel the weight of being chosen. The executive's gaze lingers on each face, searching for hesitation, for cracks. He moves close, his voice lowering, confidential. Tonight, you'll see who's ready for the next step, who can deliver, not just follow. He turns to Mark first. You want advancement. What are you willing to give for it? Mark blinks, searching for the line between truth and the right answer. Everything, he says too quickly. The executive laughs, sharp, not kind. Not everything, just what matters most. The air is tense. Maya clears her throat, eyes darting anywhere but the executive's face. The circle waits. He announces, let's be honest. There's a reason you're all here. When everyone else gave up, made excuses, or simply faded out, you stayed. He lets the words settle like dust. So tonight, I offer something in return. Those who commit receive. Those who hesitate get left behind. You tense, uncertain if this is the real test or another performance. He hands out envelopes, blank, sealed, one for each person present. You feel your heartbeat in your ears, the panic of uncertainty barely contained. Inside, an opportunity, he says, voice even. But only for those willing to accept the rules. You open it here, you accept what comes next. If not, hand it back. No judgment. The group stares. Torai runs a thumb over the seam of her envelope, lips pursed. Mark rips his open without hesitation. Maya stares at hers, silent. You hesitate, fingers trembling. The envelope is heavier than you expect. Perhaps just a folded sheet, but weighted by implication. The executive watches, quiet, but you know each decision will be remembered. You think of the gifts these nights have offered. Access, a whisper of promotion, a seat at the table. But also the costs, lost evenings, nerveless smiles, versions of yourself left behind. Is this the night you finally learn the price? You open the envelope. A business card falls into your hand. It's not the executive's name, but that of a senior leader from another department. On the back, a handwritten date and address. A meeting. No other details. He meets your eyes. You're ready. Be there, don't be late. No discussion. No mistakes. Beside you, Mark looks relieved, hunched over his card. Tori's hands shake as she tucks her envelope into her purse, unopened. She's the only one who doesn't look at what's inside. Maya sets hers gently on the table, not claiming it. The executive collects the unopened envelopes in one hand, smooth and final. Some opportunities aren't for everyone, he says, the phrase dismissive absolute. Drinks circulate again, warming hands and loosening tongues. For a brief spell, the mood lifts, stories spark, laughter ripples. You hear war stories of past projects, inside jokes told just loud enough for the circle to savor. But beneath the levity, every moment serves as display. Everyone watching, everyone performing. As the night deepens, gifts take other forms. A ride home offered without being asked, a compliment placed in passing, whispered tips about how to prepare for the meeting written on the business card. These are rewards, yes, but shaped as obligations in disguise. Maya pulls you aside as the conversations thin out. Her eyes are rimmed red, voice unsteady. I couldn't do it. Don't judge me, she says quietly. You shake your head. There's nothing to judge. He wants us changed, she sighs. Not good, not better. Just willing. She leaves first, drifting into the elevator with a silence that feels like absence. Before you go, the executive calls you, Mark, and Tori back for a final word. He details what is expected at your meeting. Every outline is vague, every instruction a test. Show initiative, anticipate needs, fit in seamlessly. Never let on how you got the invitation. You nod, because it's easier than asking what happens if you fail. Outside, the city's chill bites. You see reflections in every window. Faces pinched by effort, eyes hollowed by questions you never get to ask. The walk home is quieter than usual. Your phone buzzes with a simple text. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. don't be late. At home, you sit with the card, turning it over. It's an emblem, a password, a badge, but also a warning. You remember Maya's words. What does the reward really cost? Sleep does not come easily. It's a restless, shallow thing, half dreams, half guilt. You weigh the meaning of the card, the night, your place in the circle. Did you win, or did you simply survive? Morning arrives too soon. You wake foggy, unsure if the night ever ended. The envelope still sits on your nightstand, a silent contract you never signed but always enforced. You slip the card into your wallet, iron your shirt twice, memorize the address, rehearse the phrases you might need. You wonder again what reward you're really chasing, and who you became to reach it. On the train, you catch your reflection in the window. Unchanged on the surface, but inside you feel hollowed, like the envelope, shaped by its contents, marked by what you decided to keep. Your arrival at the meeting feels like crossing a line you drew yourself, then forgot existed. You smile, shake hands, play the part. Around the table, others glance your way with practiced composure. You all got the same call. The real selection happened long ago, in the invisible trades you made, the small yes that nested inside every no. Throughout the day, you replay the night's final moments. You realize the reward isn't praise or power. It's the privilege of playing in a game where every prize is proof of prior compliance. You have room to move, to succeed, but always inside boundaries set long before you arrived. On the way home, dusk falls hard, but the card stays in your wallet. A reminder that acceptance, like reward, is never free. And as you pass building after building, lights twinkling in impersonal patterns, you understand. Survival here is not about triumph, but about endurance. The true payment is not the cost of success, but the piece of yourself you forfeit every time you chase the next invitation. You reach your door as night settles. You leave the card on your desk, close the blinds, and wonder if anyone who wins ever truly gets to leave the game behind. If you want clarifications, edits, or specific scene additions, tell me. Ready for Chapter 9 whenever you are. Chapter 9, The Back Channel. The rooftop is quieter now, stripped of any pretense of celebration. The group feels ghost-like. 6 has dropped to 5. Maya's absence lingers longer than any one person's words. The executive's text was short. No gathering this week. See your email for next steps. That silence is heavy. Every message recalibrates the group's meaning. Every week without a meeting twists the ritual's grip a little tighter. You keep looking for a reason, for some overt fallout or public shaming. Instead, nothing. The company marches on, the office maintains its hum, but you sense a rift behind polite facades. Loyalties have redrawn themselves in the shadow of the last reward. You carry the business card everywhere. For a few days, it's a weight in your pocket. Proof of advancement, maybe, or just survival. When you finally meet the off-site leader, the name from your envelope, the air is strictly transactional. He reviews your project portfolio in detail, mentions your initiative, asks almost nothing personal. You realize he knows exactly why you're there. It's not about skills, but about how well you fit the unwritten rules. You complete the meeting professionally, repeat the agreed talking points, smile on cue. It ends without drama. I'll be in touch. Good luck. Your future, you sense, hangs on invisible strings. You message Mark and Tori afterward, out of habit as much as curiosity. No reply from Mark. Tori texts hours later. We all had the same interview. They want people who know how to listen, not talk. You answer vaguely. Did they seem impressed? Her answer is a shrug emoji, then nothing more. You wait, monitor your inbox. Nothing. 2 days, then 3. The anxiety sits on your chest. You replay fragments of the last gathering. Mark's hasty acceptance, Maya's refusal, Tori's avoidance. How quickly being left out becomes final. You realize the group functions not on rules, but on precedent. No one talks about who vanished last time. They were simply gone, erased from calendars and group chats, their absence never addressed directly. By Friday, you catch a whisper over lunch. Did they really promote someone from your group? I heard Mark's already on the shortlist for that regional project. You say nothing. Gossip is currency here. Traded in whispers, verified only by watching who sits where. You remember the executive's words. Information is value. Stories are leverage. You begin to track the backchannel more closely. Static accrues between messages. Colleagues sending, "Did you get the card too?" And "Let's meet after work." Someone, Paula, from accounts, rarely seen at rooftop nights, corners you in the hallway. She asks, "How was your last meeting? Any surprises?" She keeps the tone playful, though you sense she's probing for leaks, alliances, confirmation that there are circles within circles forming overhead. You play neutral. Same as ever. Another opportunity, another round. You realize Paula is gathering her own backchannel, mapping out which stories align, which don't. You recall now that she was absent from the last 3 events, someone who once stayed, but now orbits on a wider ring. Word spreads in fits and starts. You hear that Maya gave notice. Someone says she joined a competitor, someone else that she burned out. Tori confirms neither and disappears into her headphones. The group chat fizzles to silence. You see the executive in the office, briefly, watching from the second-floor glass. His glance is clinical. Everyone else seems to stand a little straighter in his presence, calculating whether proximity means anything at all. Things start to shift. The executive's influence persists, but now countercurrents form. People who never got the invitation start to ask questions. Some want to know what makes the cut. Others want to know if they should worry about their own invitations, or lack thereof. You get a message from someone you barely know. Are the rooftop nights really worth it? I heard they're intense. Another says, sometimes I think it's safer never to make the list. Days pass. The company runs a routine security audit. New policies about after-hours events circulate in office-wide emails. Mandatory reporting of informal work gatherings is instituted. The new language is vague. On the surface, a nod to transparency, but really a tightening of control. You see your colleagues wrestling with its meaning. Some linger after meetings, trading nervous jokes about compliance. Others drop sudden, formal references to company policy in conversation. No one names the rooftop. The original group, now 4, moves carefully. You talk to Mark in the cafeteria. Watch his eyes dart to the nearest manager before he speaks. He asks you, "Have you heard from Tori?" You say, "Not much. She's quieter these days." He nods. A pause. "Do you ever regret it?" The question is direct. You consider your answer. "Regret comes and goes," you say. "Depends on which part of myself I'm looking at." Mark drops his voice. "I almost didn't open the envelope. Sometimes wish I hadn't." The tension is real. Everybody is running their own cost-benefit analysis, day by day, silence by silence. Later, you and Mark meet after hours, not at the bar, not at the rooftop, but in the bleak space of a public park. It's nearly empty, except for the wind, a pair of distant cyclists. You talk in circles at first. Job stress, deadlines, next steps. Then he says plainly, "They want loyalty, but loyalty isn't the same as trust." You agree. They want people who don't make trouble. "Trouble," Mark repeats, as if tasting the word. Trouble is what happens to the people who leave. He doesn't say Maya's name, but you both think it. You trade stories, the ones you always edit in the executive's presence, the ones that reveal who felt threatened, who played along. You admit doubts. You admit doubts. Chapter 10. Breaking the pattern. You never remember the exact moment the pattern breaks. It isn't dramatic. There's no open confrontation, no glass crashed against the rooftop tiles, no dramatic exit. Instead, the shift starts with a thought, barely more than a whisper in your own mind. A refusal to sit at your desk pretending that everything is normal after another bleak night in the circle. It lingers, haunting trivial tasks. Checking email, pouring coffee, standing in the morning queue for the elevator. You realize the pattern exists only if you help maintain it. The executive's latest message is misleadingly ordinary. Friday rooftop, 8 p.m. Nothing more. But within your own mind, you sense the ground changing. The ritual is no longer seductive. Now each repetition is a form of surrender. You weigh your choices. It's easy to rationalize. Just one more event, one more concession, one more nod to unwritten rules. It's the same calculation that kept you returning. Belonging, protection, the hope that time invested would transform into something real. But you also see the results, what the others have lost, and what you've traded away with every silent agreement. You spend Thursday watching The Office with new eyes. The original group has evaporated. Mark calls in sick most days. Tori moved to a satellite team and never looks up in meetings. The back channel's gone quietly dormant. No pings, no side chats, no jokes at the water cooler. Even the executive's presence feels less assured. He crosses the atrium with a quicker step, rarely lingering. Eyes track him, but attention is duller now, a performance for an audience losing interest. At lunch, Paula sits beside you and lowers her voice. They say the circle's closing. New faces, same games. But the mood's shifted. Everyone's watching out for themselves now. You nod, absorbing her words. Do you regret pulling back? She asks. You shake your head. Looking back, I regret not stepping aside sooner. She offers a tight smile. Sometimes it's more dangerous to hold on than to let go. That afternoon, you do something different. You delete the executive's message. Not just archive, but erase. There's a pulse of anxiety that comes with it. You check and recheck your decision, fighting the urge to restore the email. But nothing explodes, no alarms ring. Life continues. You notice small freedoms creeping in. You go home on time, cook a simple meal, read a book. When Friday rolls around, you send a polite refusal, no explanation, just a message. Can't make it tonight. Moments later, your phone buzzes. No reply from the executive, just the automated read receipt, cold and functional. Friday night feels weightless. You eat dinner with a friend who never heard of rooftop rituals. You tell half the truth about work. The hard hours, the uncertainty, the isolation, but keep the deeper details to yourself. You walk home in the warm night air, noticing the city's noise feels less threatening. Doors open instead of closing. That night, sleep comes quickly, deeper, uninterrupted. You wake without dread. On Monday, the office feels different. The executive's chair is empty for the first hour. No one references him. The rooftop nights are not mentioned. The silence around them compresses, heavy but beginning to fade. You join a meeting with a separate team, one focused on a volunteer project. There's an ease there, a willingness to work for the sake of work, to help for reasons that have nothing to do with being chosen. Later, you check in with Paula again, curiosity unsatisfied. You look lighter, she says. What changed? I stopped saying yes, you answer. I stopped waiting for the next invite to decide who I am. She grins. Feels different, doesn't it? Yes, you say. Like taking a breath I didn't know was missing. You spend that week reclaiming pieces of yourself. You RSVP to a Saturday brunch, finish the book you started, go for a run before sunrise. When Mark texts, you write, it never really ended, did it? You reply honestly, we had to end it ourselves. Over the next few days, small moments confirm your decision. You overhear Mark speaking openly about his reservations with a mid-level manager. He seems unburdened, ready for the consequences. Tori quietly advocates for clearer HR policies in a meeting. Paula asks about forming an employee support group. Nothing about rooftop nights, just a call for mutual aid, a space for honesty. Still, the traces of the old pattern linger. Some nights, your hand hovers over your phone, waiting for a message that no longer matters. Sometimes you miss the rush, being inside, chosen, trusted with secrets others wanted to hear. But then you remember the cost. Clarity exchanged for confusion, comfort traded for approval. Toward month's end, HR circulates a memo. All informal gatherings must be registered and transparent. Leadership is re-evaluating after-hours protocols. It's written in flat, impersonal language, but you know its meaning. There are rumors of an anonymous report, of questions being asked at higher levels. Some worry about retaliation, but most exhale in relief. There's one final encounter with the executive. It happens by chance in the lobby, under the buzz of old fluorescent lights. He nods, hesitates, then says, "Didn't see you last week." For the first time, his voice is flat, no edge, no invitation. You answer honestly, "I needed the time." He studies you, measuring the impact of your absence. You miss an opportunity by not showing up. You look him in the eye. Some opportunities aren't worth the price. He doesn't reply, just turns away, hands in his pockets. You watch him go, feeling no fear, no regret, just a strange peace. The next week, as summer settles in, the rooftop sits empty. No meetings, no secret invitations. A new executive is appointed before month's end. His first email to the staff: "Everyone belongs. No exceptions. Let's build trust together." You notice the shift across the company. People stay later for real work, but they also go home on time. Casual gatherings reform, voluntary, joyful, brief. Colleagues begin speaking more honestly about stress and pressure. There's still ambition, but it's no longer measured by obedience or secrecy. You find new ways to engage, project committees, mentorship for new hires, a return to the reasons you joined this company in the first place. The group chat revives as a source of support, not rivalry. One night, walking past the building, you pause and look up at the rooftop. It is quiet, ordinary now. The lights inside flicker, hollow and forgotten. You turn away. The city's noise enfolds you, alive and full of possibility. Looking back, you realize the pattern never really owned you. It depended on your silent participation, your willingness to say yes, to wait for permission, to internalize someone else's urgency. Breaking the pattern was neither rebellion nor escape. It was simply the act of reclaiming the right to choose. Where to spend your evenings, how to share yourself, when to walk away. As you lie in bed that night, you feel the steadiness of your own agency. You write your own invitation, no validation required. You gather your identity from the quiet places you had neglected. Promise yourself, never again let the definition of belonging rest in another's hands. And to any new invitation that comes, work, friendship, loyalty, trust, you remember what it means to decide for yourself. You say yes, or you say no, because those words again belong to you. If you want next chapter, revision, or additional interiority, tell me. Ready for Chapter 11 or any continued section whenever you want. Chapter 11, your defense. You replay every choice, every silence, every moment when your own, yes, cost more than you knew at the time. Now, with distance, you see the scaffolding behind the trap. How subtle manipulation works its way into a life, one expectation at a time. You realize survival wasn't accidental. Resilience had to be built, brick by careful brick. You start to notice two groups in the office, those still tangled in the old routines, and those, like you, who stepped back. You study your own methods, the reflexes you relied on, and look for ways to armor yourself and others for what comes next. The urge to warn, explain, defend grows louder. Not out of guilt, but from a need to map the pattern for anyone willing to see. Your defense doesn't begin with anger or confrontation. It starts with small and consistent boundaries. You listen differently, speak more plainly, lean back when others try to draw you into old games. Meetings end, and you close your laptop. When someone asks for a quick extra favor, you weigh the cost and often refuse. At first, the resistance feels as awkward as learning a second language. But practice builds confidence. Some nights you meet Paula for coffee, sharing strategies for keeping your center. She jokes, "I keep a checklist for every invitation. If it doesn't serve me, it's a no." Her tone is light, but the method is not a joke. She recommends naming priorities, writing them in a note on your phone, a sticky on your desk, a reminder in a daily planner. My time is mine. My yes is mine. You commit to new rituals. Instead of numbing fatigue with mindless scrolling or automatic compliance, You journal each request made of you that feels loaded or risky. You count, by the week's end, how often the hardest word was simply no. What you see startles you. Not because you say no so much, but because of all the places where yes slips out before reflection. You ask yourself, quietly, what makes refusal scary? Is it a fear of missing out, or of reprisal? You map which relationships thrive on honest mutuality, and which ones grow brittle when you assert yourself. You realize that some people fell away naturally after you stopped showing up on demand. Their absence doesn't hurt as much as you once feared. The next step is conversations. You check in with Mark. He's uneasy but open, almost relieved. I kept waiting for someone to call me out, he says, but nothing happened. You trade stories, not about the rooftop, but about building a new support system. You agree on ground rules. No after-hours emergencies, no favors that can't be tracked or reciprocated, no offers cloaked as obligations. Among your peers, you quietly encourage awareness. In small groups, you name the pressure for what it is. It's okay to opt out, you say to the younger hires. Real opportunities don't come wrapped in silence or shame. Some listen skeptical. Others, especially those who sat in your spot at the rooftop, nod, relief clear on their faces. You research manipulation the way some people study for exams. You read about gaslighting, social proof, foot-in-the-door techniques. You see how every group ritual, every unspoken rule, every deferred refusal was not just culture, but scripting. The line between networking and coercion snaps into view. You develop practical rules for yourself. Pause before responding. You count to 5 before giving an answer. That space lets your real reaction register. Check for transparency. If the invitation is vague, ambiguous, or contingent on silence, you decline. Refuse hidden costs. You no longer accept opportunities that come with unclear terms or require sacrificing comfort or values. Name your limits out loud. You say, I leave by 9, or I won't drink tonight, before a meeting begins. Document pressure. If someone insists, you record it immediately. Who, what they said, how you felt. Slowly, you see the balance shift. The executive shadow is less oppressive. People talk about boundaries without flinching. Someone sends a new group memo. Let's keep meetings to business hours. It isn't radical, but it's the first sign that the pattern is no longer unbreakable. At home, on quiet nights, you review your progress. You note the moments where pressure still cracks through, when a supervisor leans too hard, or praise is dangled as a lure to stay late. Each time, you consciously detach. You remind yourself that every yes should come from conviction, not fear. You start mentoring a new hire, Elena, who asks bluntly about company culture. You tell her the truth, measured and direct. You'll hear invitations framed as a test of loyalty. Say yes only if you would, with equal peace say no. She seems uncertain but grateful. Over months, you watch her draw her own lines with grace. You attend a panel on workplace ethics. Someone asks, how do you know when you're being manipulated? You answer with what you've learned. Manipulation is when you can't say no without risk. Healthy places reward your best, not your compliance. You see Mark join a new team, carrying over the boundaries you rebuilt together. Tori finds her voice in HR meetings, pushes back on old methods, campaigns for clear written protocols about after-hours events. The ripple effect grows larger than you expected. One morning, you wake to an unexpected email, an invitation to a networking mixer offsite. The sender is a distant executive, the language grandiose but vague. Your gut tenses, the old anxiety surfacing. But this time you breathe. You check your own guide. Clear agenda? No. Transparent attendees? No. Optional, with no penalty? Unstated. You reply, thanks, what's on the agenda? Who else is attending? I need to know in advance to plan my schedule. The reply comes, no details, but you should trust it's worth your time. You do not reply again. You delete the message and go about your day. You catch up with Paula that weekend, both of you lighter, the edge of vigilance blunted but intact. She laughs. We should teach a class on how to say no. You both know you've moved beyond defense into something steadier. Advocacy, shared wisdom. Your defense grows into teaching. You organize an informal seminar, resisting pressure, networking without surrender. Attendance triples over expectations. Others share stories. Tears and laughter both emerge. The pattern, at last, is no longer private, its price, and its alternatives are public and open for debate. You begin to see your own story anew, not as someone victimized or even as a survivor, but as someone who learned to measure worth internally, not by proximity to power or approval. Your relationships deepen, as equals, as collaborators, no longer as rivals in invisible games. The truth is, defense is not a single act, but a habit. It is moving towards clarity, not distrust, patience, not paranoia. It is remembering yourself, always, and remembering that every system, no matter how powerful its rituals, relies on the silent consent of members. You close your journal one night with a last reflection. Most traps disappear in the light. My job is to keep the lights on, for myself and for anyone who stumbles after. You sleep some nights still uneasy. Old fears and old desires never fully vanish. But your defense is steady. Where others once drew your boundaries for you, now you mark them, openly, consciously, with intention. And when the next message arrives, masked as opportunity or loyalty, you trust yourself to answer from now on in your own voice. If you want edits, more confrontation, expert analysis, or examples of defense strategies, specify. Ready for closing chapters, extra resources, or summary sections whenever you are.